I'd never been someone in my life who'd ever lied. And then you get in an area of your life where you start making little lies and covering something up, and pretty soon, so much feels like a lie, and I'm powerless to stop this. Dustin and I met at a wedding reception.
We'd hang out, and she really loved the Lord, and I thought, this is someone I'm really feel like, God brought into my life.
We got engaged and married pretty quickly. I was 19 when we got married.
I was 22 years old when we got married.
Very quick after, moved across the country for Dustin to start in ministry and worked at an inner city church. And
we were excited about what God was doing in our lives, and I think ministry really became the focal point.
I knew that our marriage didn't match up to this dream I had in my mind of what it would look like. Yet at the same time, I'd been raised in a home where my parents had really struggled in their marriage, so I hadn't ever really seen or lived under a marriage that I could model.
We moved back to Sacramento. I started helping out at a church that we had gone to before we were married.
So he started at the church, and I was actually his assistant, and that just really kind of was the base of what everything in our life was around. The church always took the first priority.
We weren't fighting or, having arguments all the time. It's just that we weren't really spending quality time together. We were almost roommates in a sense at that point.
We were really good friends with a couple in the church, and just slowly little things from the husband started to stand out to me, just kind of starting to affirm me and to pour water almost on all these dry spots in my life that had been dry for so long that I kind of didn't even realize were there. It was definitely emotional just for me for a long time, but it did end physical. It's so slow, it's so subtle, and all of a sudden, I remember waking up one morning and thinking, it's like a light bulb went on in my head about what I was doing, and that I was in an affair, that in a totally inappropriate relationship with someone other than my husband. The Brandie I know would never do that. Like, I love the Lord. Like, how can I love God and be living in an affair? That doesn't even make any sense. I was doing all the regular things I always did at church. I was leading worship, I was helping with our kids' ministry, all at the same time while living in this affair. I'd gone on a missions trip with our church, and I was gonna lead worship on one of the nights, and I remember I was kind of getting my Bible ready and getting some things ready in my tent before I went out, and I sat down because I just knew it was like God was showing me so much, like, you're living a double life, and I knew I couldn't do this anymore. And I remember so clearly just crying out to the Lord, and I said, God, I'm stuck. I don't have the power to end this on my own. I don't know how. I don't have the strength to do that on my own. So I'm asking you have to help me and show me a way. You have to intervene in this situation. In that moment, it's like God's ears opened up and said, she's calling on me. She's ready for me. Everything came to light about 2 days after I prayed that prayer in Mexico.
I picked her up from the airport, and on the way home, she got a text on her phone saying that one of the church leaders wanted to meet with us.
And I just knew in that moment that they knew.
We walked into this back room.
It was Dustin and I and a couple of the church leaders.
I remember our worship leader, putting a stack of papers down on a coffee table right in front of us.
They had some records of text messages and of numerous phone conversations that wouldn't have been normal for just a normal, relationship.
And he said, do you have anything that you want to say to Dustin?
I just spilled everything I told him about the affair for the past year. I just told him everything.
I felt kind of, this gut-wrenching, pain.
Dustin's whole world has been pulled out from underneath him.
They said, we want you guys just to go home and figure out what the next step is for you guys. You need to take some time to be together. We didn't actually go home and talk. We just kind of went our separate ways.
Dustin said to me he just didn't think he could do it. He didn't think he'd ever be able to get past this, the hurt and the betrayal, and that he didn't really believe he could probably ever trust me again because I had lied for so long.
It was definitely a very lonely time. There was no one else to help me through what I was, feeling inside other than God.
We didn't live together. I lived in a guest house with some friends, and he would live at our house, and then I'd come live at the house and stay with the kids for a couple days, and then Dustin would go stay with some family members, and we did that for a couple months. Those were probably the darkest days of our lives. I'd said to the Lord, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for you to save our marriage, save our family. There's nothing you can ask of me that I won't be willing to do.
It was a lonely time, but it was also a time where I really feel like I grew closer to the Lord.
Trying to put the pieces of a life back together, you just can't put a time limit on that. And so we did so much counseling.
I really remember God going, you've been telling kids your whole life about, when difficult things happen to you, how you can put your trust in God. And I remember God going, Dustin, it's time for you to live out what you've been saying.
He called me one night, I remember, and he said, I'd like you to come live back at the house.
Really understanding his forgiveness of my sin was what helped me to forgive Brandie. How can I not forgive her when he's already forgiven me?
It's like God gave him hope that there could be restoration for us. A couple years after the affair, we actually had a surprise pregnancy. She's been such a gift to us in addition to our other kids. God really brings life out of a situation that feels like death.
I can't imagine life now without her. Had we not stayed together, she would have never been born.
Dustin and I have a level of closeness now that we never had before. I think just because of us healing and God growing us back together and really God creating beauty from ashes.
Whatever brokenness, whatever, pain or, that is going on in your life, God is so much greater, and that you can put your trust in him and that he will see you through it.
I totally understand God's grace in a different way than I ever did because of the choices that I've made, realizing it's only by God's grace every day that cleanses me from all the filth and all the horrid things that I've done, that God could cleanse me and see me new and different. There's always hope.